We saw more than one access control actually model and scenario via which we can control the access to resources. When you say access control, remember that we are sharing resources and we are restricting the access, or we are just awarding access. This is the access control. It's not a matter of authentication. The question I asked you at the beginning of this class today, what is the difference between the access control and the input validation? The input validation, it's a matter of authentication. It's a context, it's a scenario via which we authenticate. We validate the data transmission, yes, but there is a subfield, there is a technique, there is a practical, it's a technical approach. But the access control, it's a methodology, it's a scenario via which we award or we deny the resources shared or the access to resources. Okay, we discussed the rule-based or the attribute-based class access control mechanism, and we started the very first and primordial definition related to this field of study, and we said that it is based on the usage of the subject properties we give access to resources. See the words I use right now to define this attribute-based access control mechanism. Based on the subject's attributes or properties, we award or we deny the access to resources. So we need to know what is the subject, what are the attributes or the properties of this given subject. Then after, how we are going to award, to give, or to deny the access to resources. Simple. The attribute-based access control, it is a scenario via which we award access or we deny the access based on a group of rules, and those rules, they are being drawn based on the attributes or based on the properties of the subject mainly. What does it mean? The subject actually, what can it be? It can be a user, human being, me, you, he, she, everybody. Users of a resource, sorry, a solution online, users of a digital solution, digital software, they are all considered to be subjects. Not only that, we saw the extended access matrix, and via which we define the processes as subjects also. An antivirus might be playing the role of a subject. What is the antivirus? Is it a human being? No, it's a software, it's a computer program that has a role to do, that has a list of tasks, list of roles to do inside the computer, inside the digital environment. Can we consider him as a subject? He is a subject only because he's acting and he's having tasks to do. What are the attributes of the antivirus? The name, the brand, the roles to do. What actually he is tasking, he's actually behaving on top of what? A group of attributes. So we'll see examples. Starting with the attributes actually that they are related to the subjects in general. We can give the name, we can give let's say the affiliation, we can give actually the role to do what antivirus, what he does, or a human being, what is his job title, something like that. Those are related to the subjects. Attributes, properties related to subjects in general. The objects attributes, the resource means, based on the resource attribute or properties, we grant or we deny the access. We grant or we deny the access. What are the objects attributes? Not what are they, but examples. We are not limiting. We are taking examples only. A resource, for example, it might be an exam paper. What are the properties or attributes that can be linked to an exam paper? The exam name, for example, the title. The exam instructor or the course instructor, the author, for example. The date of the exam or the date of the generation of that file. things like that. Those are examples only. Examples. Good. The environmental attributes or properties. The environment related attributes or properties. What is the environment, first of all? The environment is the place where a subject and object they are put into a relationship. We are going to have an access to the, let's say, the list of marks. You want to have the list of marks related to, for example, this course, cybersecurity course. Where we are going to see them? Inside the EduWave or inside the, from within the EduWave or from within the Moodle, related to the University of Minnesota portal. So the environment for us for this case is the Moodle or the EduWave or the University of Minnesota website. This is the environment. So what are the attributes related to those environments? We describe it now. Those are what we mean environment. Those are what we are describing or prescribing to be environment attributes. We can state the name of the environment, the name of the operating system. We can say that. We can say what is the technology, the PHP based or ASP based or something like that. But mainly when we say actually the name of the, what is the attribute of the environment, we give a name, the name of the environment, EduWave. Does the name, when we say EduWave, does it have any impact on the object attributes or on the subject attributes? Does it have any impact, the name we say, to restrict or to give, to grant the access to the resources, for example, the objects? Absolutely no. Absolutely no. The name of the environment, EduWave, because it's named EduWave. I'm giving the example only. Huh? I'm giving the example only because the EduWave is named EduWave. You are denied from seeing the exam, for example, paper. No, or because it's named EduWave. The name is named EduWave. You are given the access to the exam questions. Absolutely no. So, and then so, and again so, and another time so. The environment here, the attributes, does not mean immediately trivially. Like here we are saying title for the object, and here we are saying name for the subject. We give here, let's say, name or title or something like that. No, it is not a consequence. I'm giving you the example, the name of the environment, as per our example here in University of Minnesota. We give the name of the educational portal. We use the EduWave because it's named, the name is EduWave, so you are not allowed to access, or you are allowed to access. No, absolutely. If we change the name from EduWave to EduFrame, for example, I give another name. Does it have any relationship with the grant, or the behavior of granting or denying the access to these sources? Absolutely no. Is it clear? But here when I give, for example, also, we are not limiting, we are giving examples only because the attributes, they are long enough to make you feel exhausted to list them, but they are usually question of being mentioned related to the topic you are discussing, or related to the service or to the process to design or to implement inside the system. So for our case here, if I take the example of the date or the timing, does it influence the access to resource? Absolutely yes. I give you the example. The environment here inside the campus or on campus here in University of Minnesota, for example, the access to the public resources, like the, for example, the internet, and over the internet to use, for example, the video broadcast or streaming channels, YouTube. You are not allowed as a student. You are not allowed to access, to open, to use the YouTube or the video streaming functionalities from 8 morning until the 4 p.m. How we are controlling the denial of access to the streaming function from 8 morning to 4 p.m. How? It is because of the timing. So the time where in my clock? No, it is in my environment. So the network using, where the resources are the user students and the resources are the public internet. We are not allowed in a given time, we are not allowed, we are denied, you as a students, we are denied from accessing that resource during that period of time. So here we are finding an attribute. Here we are extracting an attribute, we are stating an attribute. Clearly stated here. The conclusion. The conclusion. The attributes or the properties related to an environment, they are not related to a resource or to a subject. They are to the environment only. To the environment only. Cannot conclude a subject has a name and an object has a title, so the environment has to have either a name or a title or something similar. No, completely not. It is not a consequence. It's not a trivial result. We are not making a derivative function from subjects or objects to get environment attributes. It's a functionality that we have to have. Its impact clearly set on the environment to control the access, whether by granting access or by denying the access. Can you repeat what I just given you only in relation with this environment attributes or environment properties? I can give you extra marks if you can repeat clearly what I explained to you. Can you? Give me a second. أستاذ سعود، كيف حالك أستاذ سعود؟ Sorry for the interruption. Just to continue. I was asking you actually, and I was expecting to have a reply from you if you'd have a chance to redefine me what I just given you as a definition related to the attributes, properties, the environmental ones. I will give you actually, if it depends on how you are going to define it. I will give you extra marks, and I will be very generous. Can you? Hanuf, can you repeat the definition related to these environmental properties? How we expect them? Okay, we continue. That was chance. Believe me, I was expecting to give 5 marks if you've repeated the definition. Related to the attribute. Remember, when I use attributes, I use at the beginning of this chapter, I told you that we are going to use rule-based access control or attribute-based access control. They are describing the same scenario because attributes, they are the key tools or key, let's say, elements generated that we use, or developers or security, let's say, respective people generate rules. The attributes, they are used to generate rules. So rule-based ABAC, rule-based access control or attribute-based access control. But to avoid the use of the ABAC here is good. We avoid it. Why? Because we have already one model which is the role-based, the role-based access control. We have it already. So to avoid it, because role-based is not rule-based. This is another scenario. So the rule-based is the attribute-based access control. The role-based is the role-based. It's based on the functionality of the subject. So let's turn it back about. So avoid that, and we avoid that. We use attribute-based access control. Here immediately, I'm going to discuss you this model, this diagram here without any delay, to make you understand how the attributes, they are influencing the access to a resource. We have a subject trying to access the resource. See, we have a subject trying to access the resource. We have a subject trying to access the resource. 1, 3, 1, 3. All the two phase is for the access control. All the two phase, 1, 2, 3. So the user, the subject, in this case, it's the user, it's a human being, trying to access a resource, file. It's an object. The 2, it is segregated into 2A, 2B, 2C, 2D. There are rules. There are rules. The policies set by the environment. The policies set by the environment. I given you the example. You are not, you as students, you are not allowed to open the YouTube, the streaming channels from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. This is a policy set by the environment. This is a policy. This is a rule. This is not a technical step. This is a rule, a policy that we are implementing only for the good willing of the service, for the good state of the service. Simple. Policy. To be the subject attributes based on the username, based on the, let's say, the age, based on the major, based on the, let's say, department, based on, and. Yeah, subject attributes. Those subject attributes, they also influence the generation of the rules. 3, not 3, 2C. 2C. Still in the control only, still in the rule control only. The object attributes. The object attributes. What does it mean? Here, the resource. Is it an exam? Is it a list of marks? Is it the student profile? And the student profile, is it the name? Is it the mobile? Is it the ID? Those are the attributes related to the object. Also, those attributes, they do influence the generation of the rules to control the access. 2D and the fourth element from this access control, the 2D, it is the environmental situation, status, attributes, given the example, the time and the datum, the dates or whatever, as per an example only. The environment states it is work and find all the elements of the environment are up to date, things like that. So the attributes related to the environment. The attributes related to the environment. I've given you the example of the environment, the UA or Moodle or something like that here in the University of Lisbon campus. Educational portal or portals. they also influence the generation of the rules. So subject attributes, object attributes, the environment attributes, or the policies set by the administrative level, top level. Here, actually, we remember the digital security course. We have a mechanisms via which we implement technical security approaches, whether top to bottom approach or using a bottom up to approach. Here in this context, the policies, they are top to bottom, so they are rules decided by the managerial department, and technical people has to implement policies. All of them, they are keys to generate rules. Those rules, they would make the decision. Those rules here, see, decision. Those rules, they would give the decision whether to access or no, to be denied. Whether yes, you reach, you as a subject, you reach the resource, the object, or no, you'll be blocked there. Is it clear? This model, it is the attribute-based access control. Attribute-based access control. We continue in the context of the access control only, but here we are going to define something new, and that is the first time we see it in this chapter, the access control. We are going to use a list of policies that they are actually awarded to an environment via which subjects reach objects. I repeat, we are going to use a list of rules, let's say, methodologies, approaches, conditions, criterions, constraints to help subjects reach objects. Because even the denial of access or access denied during periods of time, it can be done based on those the use of those lists here. How? In this case, we are using access control lists. The ACL here stands for access control lists, and those are scenarios via which we just control the work, I may say, the engine, the use of rules to help subjects reach objects. This is a list of conditions via which we allow or we deny subjects from accessing objects. Simple like that. How we are going to see now how we are going to be they are going to be utilized here they are here. But what are they? They are a group of let's say settings, adjustments, constraints, rules. They might be actually seen differently. Means we cannot say that they are only policies. They might be conditions, constraints. They might be attributes. Yeah, but they give access. They help to control the access, to generate decisions, to make decisions, to make supportive key to decide whether to allow or not the access to an object. List. Remember the word list. Great. The subject has to be authenticated for sure. We not define the authentication. We refer to the chapter number 3. It has to be authenticated for sure, because he cannot be given access without being authenticated. Who are you first? Even by clicking a button, you have to be authenticated. We'll not discuss the authentication at this level here now. So authenticated, خلاص, we reach the level of the access control. We are inside the environment now. For example, we succeeded in opening the ADWave username and password. We are authenticated. We are in now, inside the ADWave. Here, to see, for example, your marks or grades, the access control will be the decision whether to give you the access or not. Here, it is the place now. If we are implementing the access control list as a scenario via which we or the system decides to give you access or not, here at this level, the first level here, the access control will be put in scenario yes or no based on the list of the rules or policies or constraints set for your authenticated session, for the authenticated session to be given access or no. So the list of policies, constraints, rules, whatever, they would be used to generate or to make a decision whether the session authenticated here, which is the subject session, to be granted access or not. The access control here, as I told you, they are actually a list of given settings. I'm using the word settings, but they are not settings. They might be a direct definition to a list of sessions. Fulan, he have the access to. Fulan, he have the access to. So direct definition this way. Or constraints, we give actually access to different sessions to this object during peak times or during off times or during specific times, something like that. The constraints, no more, no less. Access control enforcement here, if there is any other control to be done, the enforcement here, if there is any other control. Okay, you are allowed to do. Oh yes, Fulan, he is having a direct access to the resource. Okay, you can. But here, there is an antivirus or there is a firewall that secures the remote access to a resource. So you'll be even authenticated at the filter where the firewall is running. This is an example of access control enforcement. So the rules the filter is using also will be authenticating. It will give you access, will grant you access. This is another access control layer. This is what we mean by it, enforcement, access control. This is an example of access control enforcement. Any questions, please?
No question.
Okay, great. So I will not discuss all the details here because it's a matter of that you have to read no more or less. Here we are going to talk about the trust relationship in between still ACL with the attribute-based access control. We see the attributes of the subject and object. I will not discuss the authentication because it's a scenario here which we saw so many details in chapter number 3. Decision making is still here, but here based on rules. No access control. We do not have the ACL. We do not have access control list, the rules, and those rules to be generated based on the attributes, objects, attributes, subjects, attributes, environments, attributes, and so on. The here the enforcement now still it is using the here it is according to this diagram here. It is using the object's attributes. Why? Because it is the last layer before reaching the object. So here we see the attributes of the object in action. The four models we saw so far for the access control: discretionary access control, mandatory access control, role-based access control, attribute-based access control. Those are the standardized access control mechanisms via which we can implement and design cybersecurity specialists can refer to in order to generate whatever a security an access control mechanism, within the solution. This is not unique. Actually, we can generate a dedicated and a specific access control to specific mechanisms, specific systems. Means we can have a system in action that delivers services that has to have a specific access control that it is not none of the four pre-mentioned mechanisms: the DAC, the ABAC, the DAC, the MAC, the ABAC, and the ABAC. DAC, discretionary access control, MAC, mandatory access control, ABAC, role-based access control, ABAC, attribute-based access control. Here we see an example that discusses the DOD system, dedicated system, the Department of Defense, United States, their own local or on-premise running systems. They are actually utilizing a specific access control system, which is the identity, credential, and access control mechanism, via which we see different units running. Actually, we have to run the system starting from a given point until the end, which is actually the reach of the resources. Uh, Authentication can be started with a connection. There has to be a scenario via which to correlate the authentication and to grant access to the system. Means the authentication phase only. Access, yes, but to the system, not to the resources. Data structures here, when we remember the sparse matrix and the access, the extended sparse matrix, we were able to read it in a data structure with a data structure model to correlate the relationship between the subject and the object, the subject and the objects, plural. The way the access control here, the credential, the session generated based on the authenticated credentials, we utilize it in this model in the ICAM here to draw how the access is done. Is it logically or physically? And this logical or physical actually based on what? Management of what? Resources, privileges, policies, and so on. So the access, how it is done. You need to understand the mechanism only. We're not going to discuss it in deep because this is a dedicated system to a dedicated environment. Then here, after this level here, after we specify how the access is done, federation has to be set to the session, to the authenticated session. Yes, federation means that we are going to now generate the session and to be able to just grant access or deny the access to that session. This is the identity federation. I hope everything is clear, via which actually here we terminate the totality of this chapter number 4. Unless you have any questions, I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna stop the record and give you the chance to ask